Good morning, Napa Valley. Time for another exciting and interesting and entertaining show on the Lee and Desi Real Estate Show. I'm Lee W. Miller.
And I'm Desi Capaz.
Happy to have you guys here
with
us. We are very, very happy to have some very special guests today. Our very own longtime voter registrar of voters, and our county tax assessor, John Tudor, will be joining us in studio.
He is part of our show today.
A big part of it, actually.
Mm-hmm.
But as we like to do, we'll quickly run through our weekend recap.
But we also have somebody coming, too, on the show that's going to be calling in soon.
Yeah, and that's going to be just in about a couple of minutes.
Yeah, she's an author.
Her name is Amy Bartlett, and she was in New York City, and not far from the towers, on that fateful day. And she wrote a book called Be Still, America, I Am God. And it's a very, very interesting book. Right. I have it in front of me because I bought it. And it's just a bunch of uplifting short story examples of out of all of the rubble and all of the tragedy of that day, some very positive things occurred, and so she put them into book form, and so we wanted to at least give her a couple of minutes to talk about that because she's a longtime friend of my family. So Amy Bartlett will be joining us in just a minute, but we also want to thank our sponsors, People's Home Equity, dedicated to the simple goal of helping Americans achieve the dream of responsible home ownership. Martine Yotako, the branch manager, will be joining us just after Amy, and you can reach People's Home Equity at 707-766-0699.
Yeah, we'll check those rates for this week and see where they're at. I heard they went down, so it's interesting. You know, the 10-year yield kind of slipped a little bit, and that's where the rates kind of they base their rates on. Right. So,
and of course, Tom McDonald with Signet Reverse Mortgage will be here in our second half hour as well.
Absolutely. Okay, well, you know, there's a lot going on, obviously, today being September 11th, but I do want to, you know, pay attention to what's going on in Florida, and I do have a lot of family and friends there. Thank God that, well, there is a lot of people right now in need, some flooded areas, some homes that were destroyed, but some made it out okay, of course, and especially on the west side of Florida. But the East Coast got really battered really well. I watched the entire weekend because I was very concerned.
Yeah, well, you're from there, so that's certainly understandable. I didn't watch because I was celebrating my 34-year marital bliss with my wife, and
happy anniversary.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. We went and saw Kansas and Santa Rosa, and it was a phenomenal show, and did out to dinner and just spent the whole weekend, kind of a staycation here, and did the wine train yesterday.
Nice.
Really, really great experience. You know, having lived here for 5 years and not ever done the wine train, I was very, very impressed, and I will definitely be going back.
You heard that, Scott Goldie, right?
Yeah. Yes.
He's
Did
going to
you hear
make
that,
sure.
Scott? I am absolutely sold on the wine train. It was
awesome.
Really
I do.
Great.
They're wonderful. They make some great lunches and dinners there. So it's that experience in itself. You should just try it, and of course, great wine, no doubt. So, good deal.
And I also was fortunate enough to be invited in a very super secret birthday party for Surf and James at Flora Springs. So Saturday night. So we did a lot this weekend. So it's nice to come back to work and rest up.
Oh, nice. It's, well, you know, going back to what we were talking about on September 11th, okay, we do have Amy on the line, and we're going to speak with her in a second. But before we get to her, I want to just ask you, what were you doing on that infamous day?
I was working from home, and I had not yet really gotten started with work, and my wife ran back into the bedroom and said, "You've got to come and see this. I don't know what's happening." And so, you just remember those things. And there was a conference call later on that day that there was 25 people on, and that was when the ridiculous stories were going around that somebody was in the stairwell when the building collapsed, and that they rode this chunk of concrete all the way down and survived. And just ridiculous things.
Yeah,
so
that's
urban
crazy.
legends and things that were going around. But it's just, I was new to the company, and yet when somebody said that, I said, that is ridiculous.
Yeah,
you shouldn't even be repeating things like that.
That's a little crazy. I was working in a television station, and it all happened then. So we were all sitting there watching the live feed. We didn't know what was going on, and all I know is we seen the planes going in, and I was thinking there was some type of mistake. The pilot messed up and went into the building. So
everybody thought that at first.
Yeah. So when we seen the second one, then that was really the kicker, and then we all went into red alert basically, for lack of words, and it was a very terrifying time. So let's get Amy on the line here, and
Amy Bartlett was in New York City. Amy, are you there with us?
Yeah, I am. Amazingly, it's funny to look back and I hear you guys talking, and your brain immediately goes back there, and then you immediately go back to your seat on the subway or wherever you individually were at that time, and then you think, somebody asks you, "Are you there?" and you think, "Well, doggone it, yeah, I am." And a lot of people aren't, and there's been a lot of stuff that happened in between, and it just kind of puts it all in perspective.
Yeah,
and it was quite something to come through.
So, tell us, your little, I was there when, and this is what, that one little minute of what your first reaction was and things of that nature.
Well, it's funny, and probably later today on Facebook I'll post it again, as I do almost every year, but I still have the answering machine message from my mother trying to get a hold of me without cell phones back then, and or without, I don't remember if I even had a cell phone or owned one. And for those of you who don't know what an answering machine is, ask your grandmother.
Right.
But ironically, the whole country is reacting to what's happening, and a whole bunch of New Yorkers had no idea, because you're on the subway, you're in a cab, you're not in living rooms with televisions and kind of home lives. You're in an urban metropolitan area, and kind of took a majority of New York City a longer time to catch on to what was going on. I mean, the planes hit literally the moment, if you're looking at the time, but I didn't know it at the time, that I climbed on the train for my morning ride to work. And by the time I got to the 34th Street stop, which is Herald Square, which was where everybody watches the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, so that gives you a geographical location. An announcement had been made that all train service was suspended east to west from that point, 34th Street down, which is half of Manhattan. And nobody said, "Oh my goodness, what happened?" Everybody laughed. And, I was making a comment to a stranger getting off the train who said, "That guy's fired," because it would never happen. It would have to be like a nuclear holocaust for all the trains from east to west to stop. And little did we know, something just about that big had happened. But it took a very long time to catch on. There were cars, accidents, people yelling at each other. The Empire State Building was kind of cordoned off. It had decorated officers at all the doors instead of, like the speed cops. So when you walk past that and there's, a captain guarding the door and saying, "No, nobody comes in," you're thinking, wow, something must have happened at the Empire State Building. But again, it's just those unfolding like turning pages of a magazine. You think something's wrong, but it probably took, 45 minutes to even find out what it was that had happened.
Had to be very terrifying for you, I would imagine.
It was surreal.
Yeah. So take us from there as to what led you to write this wonderful book.
Sorry, somebody, I literally stopped and asked me a question. I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Can you, from that point, over the coming days, weeks, and months, what led you to write the book? And we've just got about another minute and a half.
Oh, sure, and I can make that super quick. I take 0 credit. It was all kind of a God thing. It happened to involve a radio station. My mother asked me to write an email for the family because a lot of people were asking questions, but it wasn't an era where you could text everybody. And so I wrote her an email saying how I was fine, and then I threw a line in the end of it and said we need to be still and know that I am God, that verse. And, you know, the whole nation needs that right now, to be still America. But I'm fine. Mom, Dad, Grandma. And she was working on the air at the time. She was the producer of the Eric Hogue Show. They put it on that radio station website. It kind of circulated. And it got back to somebody I had taught at a writers' conference with, who called me and said, we need the positive side of the story to be told. Everybody's saying, you know, where was God on September 11th? He was gone. And everybody's, you know, awful. And there was a good side of people wanted to tell testimonies of, hey, here's how I got through that day. Here's how God helped me. Here's how my family survived. And we need to find those good stories and encourage people right now. And that's how the book came about. It was an assignment.
Well, Amy, we greatly appreciate you joining us today.
Yeah,
I wish
thank
we
you,
had
Amy.
more time. The book, again, is called Be Still, America, I Am God, and Amy Bartlett, like the pair, is the author, and you can find this book on Amazon. I highly encourage you to pick it up and read it, because it is taking something that was very tragic and finding the good in it, and your heart will be warmed when you read this book from Amy Bartlett.
Yeah, that was a very terrifying. I couldn't imagine being in the city at that moment, right. But she was right in it, and you know, I couldn't imagine you know, the thoughts that ran through her mind, or still to this day. Right. So, okay, so let's move on to Martine. And I believe it's not Martine today, but it would be Bridget.
Oh, Bridget's on the line.
Hello, good morning, Desi and Lee. How are you doing today?
What a breath of fresh air your voice is.
Don't tell that to Martine.
Well, thank you, guys. How was your weekend?
It was wonderful, as you probably saw all of my anniversary posts.
Yeah, happy anniversary. That's amazing. That's quite an accomplishment.
Yeah. If you're just tuning in, I'm Lee W. Miller, and I am with Desi Capaz. You're listening to the Lee and Desi Real Estate Show, and joining us now is Bridget Nelson from People's Home Equity. Bridget, what do you want to share with us today?
Well, today I wanted to talk a little bit about, I'm sure everybody is aware of it, with the Equifax. And unfortunately, yes. What recently occurred.
That's right.
And so I kind of want to just
for
go
those
over
for the couple of people that may not know, Equifax was hacked, and what was it, 140 million?
Yeah, it was like 143 million people possibly could have their information out there, and there is a website, and gosh darn it, I wish I had it, and hopefully you have it, Bridget. But I know
I do.
You do,
yeah.
So you have to give this out to the people.
Absolutely. So on July 29th, Equifax discovered that the criminals exploited a U.S. website application vulnerability to gain access to certain files. So this is kind of what we've been dealing with. And so it's also been reported the criminal access to law enforcement, and they, of course, continue to work with the authorities to fix this. But, yes, as you mentioned, it did affect many, many people. And a lot of people want to know how can they get this, how can they check that. So going on to the www.equifax.com, to check the system, what they'll have you do is enter your last name and enter the last 6 of your Social Security number.
Right.
And so what they're recommending is to get your credit frozen. So nobody could pull your credit without them calling you, or you have to actually, unfreeze it yourself. But there is also the site of the trustdidpremier.com / eligibility. But a lot of this information can be found on the www.equifax.com. But yeah, there's many different prevention tips on there, what you could do, what they are doing now. because yes, many people were affected by it, unfortunately.
And of course,
and actually,
you're
go ahead.
You're bringing this up because People's Home Equity, you are constantly checking people's credit. You're responsible for helping them get into home ownership, and this could really be a big monkey wrench in the gears, going through what people have to freeze their credit right in the middle of you guys trying to get them approved for a home loan. So that's good information. I think I saw a TV commercial, and I wasn't even trusting that Equifax.com was even legitimate, because we're in this day and age where we're so guarded and so paranoid about having our identity stolen.
Well, we're going to make sure we put this website on our website at www.leeanddesi.com for anybody and all listeners to click on there and check. Make sure you do check, because I did it the other day, and it said, a matter of fact, it said I'm possible for being, for my information being used. So now I'm a little nervous, and I'm going to, they gave me a date, and I got to click back on there. And
yeah, I know a lot of people that just called their credit card companies and said, cancel it, give me a new one.
Yeah.
And they're just taking that step. So
it's good to be safe, be prepared.
And
be
I don't know
aware.
if that's sufficient, if you did that with all your credit cards, or if you really want to freeze your credit. So
Right, yeah. So they're having all these, what to do, what to prevent, how to do it. But in the end, you got to kind of figure out what you'd like to do and do a little bit additional research on that, because there's a lot of factors in there that come into play.
Well, that's good information. Bridget, thanks for joining us. Bridget with People's Home Equity. You can reach Bridget or the branch manager, Martine, at 707-766-0691. This is their area of expertise. So even if you have questions about getting hacked, not from a technical standpoint, but for the impact as to what it will do during applying for a loan, the folks at People's Home Equity would be happy to help you out.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, our next guest, and let's not wait any longer, but it's John Tudor, our Napa County assessor, and he also is a voting a registrar. Okay, so John, welcome to our show.
It's nice to be here.
Yeah, thank you for coming in today. So, we want to talk about all kinds of things, and we probably don't have enough time on the show. But for one thing, properties values are going up, right? And I'm getting a lot of talk from clients and so forth, especially sellers that are a little nervous about moving because their property base is going to go through the roof. So what are you seeing on your side? Well, let's talk about the roll call.
Well, the assessment roll had the biggest cash increase in history in Napa County, $2.4 billion in 1 year. That was the increase. And just to put that in perspective, Desi and Lee, the entire assessment roll in 1980 was only $2.37 billion. So we grew in 1 year more than the entire roll was worth 37 years ago. So that's part of what's happened to the value of the dollar, but also this is a very special place, and people are willing to invest money to come to this very limited resource we have because of the good planning and the special care we've taken of this very special environment that we live in. So that's the main news. And as you know, it's a two-way street with the real estate industry. You help buyers and sellers, and when they buy and sell, it adds to the assessment roll. So we're coming out of the Great Recession that started in 2007, and really we're now seeing we're back not quite to where prices were in 2006 at the big bubble time, but we're getting back in that area.
We're about at 3%, 5% off of that.
That's right.
Well, that's interesting in and of itself. I'm not going to argue with the county assessor. I mean, he knows, but the funny thing is you see lots of articles where they said, we are back. We're back to the highest levels of pricing. And maybe you're referring to just Napa County, which would obviously...
That's all I know.
Okay, right.
But it's spotty, Lee and Desi, across the country. Parts of the Central Valley are nowhere near back where they were. They're still in the doldrums. Some of my colleagues still have thousands of property in a decline in value status. We still have some in Napa County We've got almost 3,000 properties, mostly in American Canyon and the city of Napa, where people haven't gotten back to what they paid for their property in 6 and 7. So we have little pockets here where we're not back yet.
Right.
But on the whole, we're back. Right. And that's good. We want to make sure it's not another bubble. We want to keep this steady and calm and not having the big ups and downs that we did over the past 25 years. But let's see. There's always cycles in everything, so we never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, that's true. The big talk is there a bubble? And it's like, no, it's more supply and demand at this time. There's no, fake loans out there or bad loans out there being made. It's more of the supply and demand part of it. But for the most part, we do have propositions in place to help homeowners at this stage in their life, especially like 55 and older, right? They can take their bases and carry it to the next home that they want.
As long as they don't pay more for the new home than they sold their original home for.
Right.
And in this market, that's harder to do.
Exactly.
That's very hard to do. I just had a guy, as I was walking out I caught the bus over from downtown. I
was going to offer a ride.
Well, going back maybe, but I like riding the bus. As I was walking out the door, a guy came in and said, my wife wants us to move. Mm-hmm. And I said, what's your house worth? He said, well, he's in a nice part of town, about $1.1 million. And he said, she wants to move in the country. I said, good luck, because you can't pay. They're over 62. Over 55, sorry. Mm-hmm. But they can't, they can't pay. If they buy first, they can't pay more than they're going to sell their house for. And they always take the risk that the market could stagnate or flatten out. So I explained that to him, but it's a big jump. He's been in their home for 27 years, so they have a low Proposition 13 base year value. And if they sell for $1.1 million and buy for $900,000, so let's say their base year value is $350,000, so their tax bill's about $3,500. If they buy for $900,000 and can move there, instead of a $9,000 tax bill, they keep their $3,500 tax bill. $5,500 a year is a lot of money. It's almost $500 a month.
Yeah, especially when you're over 62
or 55 and moving into a fixed income where you're not at your peak earning years anymore. So it's a great program. We see it happening. Napa County does not allow people to bring their base year value from other counties. There are 13 counties that do permit that, mostly big counties, but also El Dorado County and Ventura County, which are not huge counties, allow people to bring their base years from other parts of the state. Napa doesn't do that, nor do 43 other counties allow people to bring them in. So it's a great program. The other one, of course, that I talk about when I come to your caravan is the parent-to-child exclusion. I remember when I was on the Board of Supervisors, I'd go to high school classes. This was back before I know you were born and close to before you were born in the 70s. And I'd go to high school classes, government classes, senior year, ask for a show of hands, how many you want to live in Napa? It was 40 years ago. Oh, it's a dump. There's nothing to do here. I'm going to the big city. Well, they all want to come back now.
Right.
And the only way they're going to be able to come back is if their parents and their grandparents were smart enough to buy a couple of pieces of rental property back in the 50s and 60s and 70s when you could still do that. And now the kids or the grandkids can take those over and pay their parents off and have a place to live in the Napa Valley. So, it's wonderful for the assessment roll and it's good for the property tax rolls, but there is this barrier to especially young people being able to get into the real estate market. Right. So and that's the whole affordable housing issue too. So there have been a number of people I've seen recently that have been able to get. So I just had a situation, just to be brief here. So grandmother wanted to sell her property to her granddaughter, okay? And I explained to him you can't do that because the parents are still alive. It's got to go from the grandmother to the son and then from the son to his daughter, okay? They messed up. I don't know who messed up, but they're going to have to pay those higher taxes until they get it fixed. And at that point, we can give them their Prop 13 base year value back.
Gotcha.
But they're going to pay those higher taxes from now until June of 2018, and then we'll kick the other taxes back in. And that's $5,000 it's going to cost them that they wouldn't have had to pay.
At least they can fix it. That would be horrible if that was an error that could not be remedied.
Right. Yeah, there's a thing called rescission. So your listeners, and when you talk to your clients, sellers, and buyers, remind them to come see me.
Right.
You know, the advice I'm giving you is worth just what you pay for it, but I can at least point you in the right direction. And then when something goes bump, it goes bump, but we can fix it. So.
Right. Well, that's the one thing about you, John, that I love is that you're very accessible and to the community. And I know you answer my emails right away when I send it to you. So folks out there need to know that if you have questions about your property tax, John will answer you via email. Right, so it's john.tudor.
Tuteur, at countyofnapa.org with no spaces. Or my phone rings on my desk. I don't believe in administrative assistance. So it's 707-253-4459. And if I don't answer right away, I will. And one of the things I like to tell people, if you leave a voice message, go ahead and leave it in detail. It's confidential. Nobody else can listen to my voicemail but me. And that way I don't have to call you back and say, what'd you call about? So, and I can, if I don't get you, I can say, hey, Lee, thanks for asking me about that property out there.
You can actually give an answer.
I can leave you the answer. Right.
Oh, that's the beauty of it. You do answer your phone, so that's great. Well, let's go to a break. We'll be right back with John Tudor. He's going to be in the second half hour also, but we also have Tom McDonald coming next right here on the Lee and Desi Real Estate Show.
Welcome back for the second half of the Lee and Desi Real Estate Show. I'm Lee W. Miller.
And I'm Desi Capaz, and wait for it.
There's those drums. We always talk about the drums. That is Playing for Pennies.
That's the other Mr. Miller.
Well, yeah, the drummer on that track is my son, Nicholas Miller. You can see him at miller.photo. He is quite the artist, photographer, painter, musician, anything artistic. He's doing it very well.
He is a very artistic guy. There's no doubt about it.
He didn't get it from me.
Well, you said it, not me.
Right. We are happy to have you here at the Lee and Desi Real Estate Show, and now it is time for Tom McDonald at Signet Reverse Mortgage. And Tom, good to see you again. Thanks
good morning,
for coming
guys.
into the studio. Makes it a little bit easier than
the
phone call, and you live close by. So we're going to mix things up a little bit.
Okay. Well,
very
you surely are.
Basic question. As opposed to what is a reverse mortgage, the question that we have for you today, Tom, is why would someone want or need a reverse mortgage? You have 10 seconds. Go.
I was just saying that's a big question because there's lots of answers. Let me start with a quick paragraph. Basically, you might get a regular mortgage to buy a house, and then you're going to make monthly payments. With a reverse mortgage, you can get a reverse mortgage to buy a house and not have regular monthly payments. So there's one reason. You might want to refi a house and take some cash out. Well, you can get a reverse mortgage and basically be able to use the equity in your house for your cash needs. Most people think of the reverse mortgage as kind of a loan of last resort for the house-rich, cash-poor person, where they've got a house worth a lot of money, but their cash flow, it's just Social Security perhaps, and they just can't keep up. So being able to have access to the equity in their home to add to their cash flow is one of the typical reasons people think of a reverse mortgage for the older people.
And then that would beg the question of why don't they just take out an equity loan? And the reason for that, I'm assuming, is that it makes a whole lot more sense to do a reverse mortgage than pulling out $200,000 and just living on that while you're paying back the payment on that loan.
Exactly. If you have a cash flow problem, in my mind, it doesn't make sense to borrow the money when you have to make monthly payments. Cash flow is the issue. Why make monthly payments when cash flow is the issue?
Right.
And they're also starting to look at reverse mortgage now as a full retirement plan because there's lots of different ways to slice it and dice it. I'd mentioned before you can take money out either up front as cash, monthly payments, or a line of credit. we're going to talk more in detail in a future program, but that line of credit grows. Unlike a HELOC, an equity line of credit, that, let's say you apply and you're given a $100,000 limit. With the reverse mortgage, whatever your limit is, which is the maximum that's available for that particular age and price bracket, it grows over time at the same interest rate the borrower is charged for the money they're actually using. So that can be a very big number later in life. So for somebody who doesn't really need one now, they're retiring, but cash flow is okay. We don't know what the future holds. We don't know if our portfolio is going to last. So many people now don't have a pension, so they're going to live on Social Security and whatever money they've saved, whether it's through an IRA or through other investments. And to be truthful, among the baby boomers, that's a very small percentage. They don't have much money put aside.
Well, Tom, and quickly, what's significant about October? I believe it's October 6th, right?
Right, October 2nd. We talked about that. Right, we talked about that last week, where the FHA has made changes without a whole lot of notice, and the amount of money that people can borrow is going to go down up to 22%, depending on age and interest rate factors. So that's a lot of money to give up just in a heartbeat.
Just based on a regulation.
Right. And in fact, the October 2nd date is the last day is the first day case numbers apply to the new system. So we have to get a case number before that. There's a lot of factors going on. So people actually have to have done their counseling, and we have to have taken an application by September 22nd, give or take. So I'm hearing most of the counselors are full.
Right,
yeah, I've got a number of apps lined up after they counsel.
Okay.
And I'm hearing most of the counselors are pretty much booked up. Somebody at the last minute wants to try, I'll help them with a list of counselors.
So is it safe to say that if anybody wants to get in a reverse mortgage, just try to get it in before maybe September 22nd, or
have them call me right away,
and call Tom
really,
Rive.
And I'll walk them through the process. I'll give them the phone contacts for a couple, 3 dozen counselors, and they can just get on the phone and see if they can find one that can do it.
All right. Well, thank you very much for that information.
Thanks
Tom
again, guys.
McDonald with Signet Reverse Mortgage. And you can reach Tom at 707-265-6385. Call him if you're even thinking about it, because time is running out, at least in terms of how much that you could take out.
Absolutely. Well, I want to take the time to let everybody know how to contact us. We have several ways in contacting us, and one is through email, of course. It's at leeanddesi@gmail.com, or you can go on our website at www.leeanddesi.com, or we also have we're also on Facebook and Twitter, and they're both at Lee and Desi. So those are the ways to contact us. If you have any suggestions, questions, even if you said, listen, I'm interested in a reverse mortgage, how do I get in touch with Tom? Get in touch with us. We can certainly direct you in the right direction. So now we would like to bring back John Tudor, the Napa County Assessor and Voter Registrar. And thank you for coming on our show today.
My pleasure. There's one other program that you mentioned that I want to cover. You didn't mention it yet, but I'll mention it. And that's called property tax postponement. Mm-hmm. So there is a program funded by the state of California whereby homeowners whose total household income is less than $35,500, which we hope there aren't many people in that situation. It's sort of what Tom's clientele are looking at also, not a great deal of cash flow. If your total household income is less than $35,500 and you're over 62 or severely disabled, regardless of age, and you have 40% equity in your home, you can apply to the state of California to pay your property taxes for you.
That's wonderful.
And there are only 19 families in Napa County taking advantage of that right now, and I'm sure there are hundreds, not thousands, but probably hundreds of families who qualify. So, again, contact me if you meet those criteria. You're over 62 or severely disabled. You are 40% equity in your home, and your total household income is $35,500 or less. You can reach me at john.tudor, Tuteur, at countyofnapa.org or 707-253-4459. There is plenty of money in the pot for this coming year. Applications don't open until October 1st, just before Tom's deadline. But they go on until February, and I'll help people fill out the application.
But there is a cap to the program. There's only so much to give.
But it's plenty for the whole state of California for this year. And I just want to make clear, it's not a gift. It's like a mini mortgage. It's a lien against the property for just the amount of taxes. There's a 7% interest rate, but it's a simple interest. So if you borrow $1,000 this year, it's $1,007 the next year.
Yes, it does. It's not compounding.
Right. And if you borrowed $1,020 next year, that gets 7%. So it's a great program, and there should be many people taking advantage of it who are not yet.
Well, I seen an alarming statistic that for the broad perspective of what's going on in the state, 29% of the state can afford the median price of homes in California. I mean, and that's about in the mid fives. I don't have that exact number at this point in time, but it's 500,000, a little over that. They can't. 29% can only afford that.
Well, and it's also interesting to note that the median home price nationally is at an all-time high. That's why, from what we were talking about, and it's $283,000.
Right, and we double it.
Yeah, and here in Napa, we're more than double as the median price.
Maybe 4 times.
Yeah, well, 4 times for Napa, but doubling it as a state.
Right.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. True.
So it's
roughly $550 for California,
right.
But in Napa, it's more like 7 something.
Right. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So we're seeing those kind of numbers, John, and so let's step aside for a second and let's get to voting. Okay, we're Napa County.
Change hats.
Yeah, we're gonna change your hat here. We're doing something in Napa that is precedent throughout. It hasn't been done. It hasn't been done in the country, right?
No, in the country it has, but not in California.
That's right. And so Napa County volunteered to be a pilot county for this new voting system, and I'll talk about that in a minute, which is everybody gets a ballot in the mail. And there won't be any polling places in June of 2018.
And there's your real estate reference, kind of, sort of. Because we won't be going to a location where there's real estate to vote. There was a stretch, but I had to do it.
Well, there are going to be locations, but they're not going to be called polling places. So the reason Napa County volunteered, and I've got a great team working with me, that's one big reason, because they really are supporting me and the whole concept very, very effectively, is that we're already 90% vote by mail. And we've had voting centers which replace polling places since 2008. So we're the only county in the state that has had almost 10 years of experience with vote centers. So you'll be able to get your ballot in the mail. If the dog eats it, and I'm not joking, we've had 2 ballots brought in over the last 10 years with big bites taken out of them. Or if you lose it, or if you realize at the last minute that your mother-in-law is going to be leaving town and you want to get her a ballot, you can come to one of our vote centers. 2 of them open 10 days before the election. The other 6 are open 4 days before and Election Day, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. The other big change is there are going to be drop boxes at all the municipal town halls and city halls and up in Angwin, where you can drop off your ballot for 28 days before the election. If you're concerned about whether the mail will get it there in time, you'll be able to drop that off. And then the final and biggest thing is that you're going to be able to register to vote up to and including Election Day. Which is new. It was 15 days before cutoff registration, not anymore, and that's because we have a statewide voting system. So if you register in Napa County, your registration in San Diego County is automatically canceled, and that's the protection that people are only voting once.
Right.
And so you'll be able to come in. You have to come in person the last 14 days and Election Day at our vote centers or our office. Register to vote. We'll issue you a ballot. You can vote it right there, and you'll be registered for the long haul. And you will have gotten your ballot in. So those are the big changes.
So I'm assuming that the same rules apply if you're registered independent, you're not voting in the primary. Things of those natures are going to be the same as if there were still
Well,
polling
the
places.
only time that applies is in the presidential primary, Lee, and that's not until June of 2020. So for June of 2018, everybody gets everybody's ballot. Okay. So it's called the top 2 vote getters, and it's called voter nominated. So from governor on down, you'll be, except, of course, because they are partisan races, local races are nonpartisan. I'll be on the ballot in June of 2018.
You got my vote.
Well, thank you. Don't forget between now and June, right? Or when you get your ballot in May.
Right.
But for partisan races, everybody can vote for Democrat, Republican, Independent. In the presidential, it could be different in 2020, and I'll be back on the show, I hope, before then to fill you in on that. But everybody gets the same ballot in 2018 in the mail, and then have the vote centers to register to vote up until the election day. And the reason the legislature did that was 2 bad statistics. California ranks 44th in the nation among eligible citizens who register to vote. And you don't want to be near the bottom. We're 74%. Some states are 85, 90% people who are eligible citizens who register. So we have 20,000 people in the county of Napa who are eligible citizens who are not registered to vote. That's not good.
Right.
Then the other piece of the puzzle is once you are registered to vote, people aren't turning out. So part of this whole idea of the new voting method is to get people registered up until Election Day and to get them to vote. And hopefully with the drop boxes, everybody getting in a ballot in the mail, you don't have to remember it's Election Day and, oh, darn, I can't get off work because I'm busy or my kid's sick and I can't get to the polling place. You will have had your ballot for 29 days, and you can get it in up till Election Day postmark, and then it's got 3 days to get to me and be counted.
Well, and tell the listeners how, say if you can't remember if you registered or not. I mean, what do you do? I mean, is there
you can go on our website.
Okay.
So 60 days before the election at countyofnapa.org and click on elections or put it in the search box. There's a My Voter information, and if you put in your last name and your birth date, it'll tell you if you're registered or not. If you don't come up, you aren't registered. Okay. And what maybe you were registered, say, but you moved, and we canceled you because you moved, say, before November, and your ballot came back to us. We inactivated you because the ballot, you can't forward an election ballot.
Sure.
The law doesn't provide for that, so it comes back to me. We inactivate you because it says there's nobody at that address. You go out last name and birth date on our website starting in April. If you don't see your name there, come and see me or register online. You can register right on the Secretary of State's website from your...
And you can do it again, and if you're registered, it's going to all come back. It doesn't matter.
You'll be fine.
Yeah, it'll be fine. Okay.
But don't go out and register just in case, because it may just cause you extra time. But once you've checked with us and you don't see your name come up, then you need to go out and register. Online is the best way.
Okay.
And you can do it from your cell phone. You can do it from your computer.
So I'm okay. So I'm trying to vision. You get all these ballots coming in from the mail. There's a system. There's some kind of computing system. Right.
Well, what happens is, to make sure that the person who voted is the right person, we check the signature on the return envelope against that voter's signature on their registration affidavit. And if they don't match, then several eyes look at them. I finally look at them. And if they don't match at all, then we can't count that ballot. But that's the main verification of the identity of the voter, is we compare your signature to your signature that we already have in our computer system. At the polling place, or at the vote center, at the vote center when you come in...
It'll be a tough habit to break.
Yeah, it will be. That's the first time I've done it in a couple of months, thanks to you guys. At the vote center, when you come in to register to vote, you're going to get a conditional ballot. It's the same as everybody else's. It's going to go in a special envelope. We're going to hold that for a couple of weeks after the election to make sure that everybody's voter history is posted throughout the state and that you didn't forget that you'd voted in San Francisco before you moved to Napa. And so those controls will be in place for people who register up till and including Election Day.
So, do you find it more complex, this system, or other than what we were used to, or do you? I mean, how is this system compared to going to the voting?
Actually, it's easier. We're already 90% vote by mail.
Okay.
So picking up that now, we're going to send out material to all voters in April saying you got your ballot in the mail. Don't throw it away, because you're not going to go to a polling place. You're going your ballot's in your hand. And then those people who've used polling places in the past, they're going to get a special mailing from me in late April saying there's no polling place this time. Your ballot's coming in 10 days. Look at it, take your time, vote it, return it to us.
That's me. Because I'm just usually the one that, I just I'm so used to it. I don't know. I've never done this before, going through the mail, which is, I've known friends and family that do it, and they say it's very easy. You get it done, it's done.
Well, I traveled for 32 years all over the country, and so I've been doing vote by mail forever. So now that I'm not traveling anymore, I like to go to the polling place.
But you can come to our vote center instead. Come see our staff.
There you go.
Get a cookie. And, enjoy it.
Get a cookie and a sticker.
Yeah.
And a sticker.
Yeah.
You got to get your sticker.
The stickers are going to be in the mail, too.
Right.
Perfect.
Yeah, we send the sticker right along with your ballot so you can wear it with pride. So I usually vote the first day I get my ballot.
Sure.
And then I wear my sticker for the next 30 days so that people know I voted anyway. I won't tell them who I voted for.
This man can make a sticker last 30 days.
Oh, I can imagine.
Well, I put it on a piece of paper and put it on my magnetic name tag, and there it is right there.
You also have access to other supplies of stickers.
Right, so. But I try and I'm very frugal. I try and environmentally conscious. I try and only use one sticker per person.
That's perfect.
Well, I'm glad you covered the part about the verification, because I've shared this information with a few folks, and they say, "Well, I'm thinking fraud." That's their first thought is, how are we going to protect the dead people from not voting because of fraud? So it sounds like you've got that covered with what you just shared.
In California with vote by mail, we certainly have that covered. Yeah. And when there were polling places, you signed that roster as well before you got your ballot. Right. So there's going to be a signature around somewhere.
Sure.
And plus, when you show up at a polling place, we don't ask for ID in California. We're not one of those states. This is the honor system in California. But you sign your name next to your address at a polling place. Now, you won't do that at a vote center because your signature will be on your envelope. But that's always been the verification, and it's a really, really effective system. I tell the staff that I'm going to be so every election, I've probably looked at 10,000 signatures in the last 20 years. And if I'm going to deny someone's vote because I can't match their signature, I'm going to do it personally. I'm the registrar of voters. And then I send them a letter and say, your vote didn't count because your signature doesn't match. Please re-register. And so we go out of our way to make sure that people are able to exercise this precious right that we have to run a democracy. And I just wish I had 100% turnout, but we'll see.
Just out of curiosity, when you have sent those letters, how many times have it turned out that they just are sloppy and they didn't duplicate their signature, and then they made it right going forward?
Most of the time, they re-registered.
Okay, so most of the time it wasn't fraudulent.
No, it's never fraudulent.
Okay.
We've had one case. I've counted 1 million ballots in 20 years. We've had one case of proven voting fraud where somebody did vote twice because we sent them 2 ballots because they had 2 different they didn't do it on purpose, but then they voted on purpose twice and disguised their signature. And we caught them. Those votes didn't count. The DA investigated. They paid a $4,000 fine. It's on their record. And you don't mess with the voting system anywhere in the country, but you certainly don't in Napa County.
Right.
That's right. I believe it.
The phrase that popped into my head is there's a new sheriff in town, but he's not the sheriff. He's the registrar of voters, and you don't mess with John Tudor, not in Napa County.
Or with John Robertson, the sheriff.
There you go. I know. Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much, John. We appreciate you coming by. It's always great to have you on our show. You're a wealth of knowledge, and Napa needs to hear more of our systems and especially the property taxes. Everybody's kind of looking at that. The housing is somewhat an issue, a hot issue in this state, just not in this county, in this state. So, anyway,
anytime I'm available.
Thank you. Yeah,
right.
We appreciate that.
Thank you very much, John.
So that was, I think, the most informational show that we've had so far.
That's going to be tough to top.
I think so.
Thank you once again to Martine Yatako and Bridget Nelson from People's Home Equity and Tom McDonald from Signet Reverse Mortgage and our very special guest, Amy Bartlett and John Tudor. Thanks for listening, you guys. This is the Lee and Desi Real Estate Show. Check out our website, leeanddesi.com.
Thank you very much, and we'll see you next week on the Lee and Desi Real Estate Show.